They called my name, and I rose from the third row in a sea of caps and gowns. My palms were damp against the edge of my robe. I could see Dean Hartford waiting at the center of the stage, hand-extended smile ready. I took 2 steps forward, and that's when I heard her voice. She cheated her way through college. It came sharp, slicing through the ceremony like glass. The auditorium froze. My head turned instinctively before I could stop myself. She was standing Callie midway up the aisle, one hand clenched around the program, the other pointed directly at me. She lied. She stole. Ask the registrar if she ever even earned her credits. Gasps fluttered across the room. A couple of people shifted in their seats. Phones came up like reflexes. I felt 400 eyes dart from her to me. My breath caught somewhere between my ribs and my throat. Dean Hartford's hand mid-air slowly lowered. His expression changed, not disbelief, not anger, just concern. The kind that makes you feel 10 years old again. Callie's voice rose louder. She's a fraud, and everyone's just handing her a degree like she didn't lie to get here. My shoes felt stapled to the carpet. For a second, I couldn't tell if my legs had gone numb or if I simply refused to move. Beside me, another graduate whispered, "Oh my God," and somewhere near the back, someone laughed nervously. I swallowed hard. Then I walked. 1 step, then another. Not fast, not slow, just forward. I didn't look back. Dean Hartford didn't move until I reached him. He held out the diploma. My fingers trembled as I took it. "Miss Ellison," he said quietly, "would you like to continue?" I nodded. The microphone stood beside us. I could see its red light blinking live. I turned to the audience, to the phones, to my sister still standing still yelling, and I stepped up to the mic. The whispering didn't stop at first. You could still hear people murmuring, adjusting in their seats, speculating. But then I cleared my throat, and they did. They stopped. I looked across the auditorium, not for defense, not for permission, but because I had something to say. "I've been accused of being a fraud," I said. My voice didn't shake, and I could spend the next 5 minutes trying to prove that I'm not, but I won't. My fingers tightened around the edge of the podium. Because this moment isn't about her. I didn't name her. I didn't have to. This moment is about every paper I wrote at 2 a.m. after closing the cafe. Every exam I studied for after my shift. Every time I didn't quit because I couldn't afford to. I paused. Somewhere a phone clicked into silence. "I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm here because I earned it." The auditorium went still. Even Callie's voice had gone quiet, or maybe I'd just stopped hearing it. I turned back to Dean Hartford. "Thank you," I said softly, and we shook hands. Then I walked off stage and into the hallway, still holding my diploma like a question I'd finally answered. I didn't cry after the ceremony. Not even when I was alone in the hallway holding a diploma in one hand and a phone buzzing with half-hearted apologies in the other. I just sat on a bench near the exit door's coat draped over my lap, letting the cold air from outside settle on my skin like a reset. Callie's voice still rang in my ears, but the words weren't new. They'd just never been said so loudly. She used to say things like that behind closed doors sarcastically with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Leora always lands on her feet," she'd mutter, or, "You know how it is when you're the golden one." As if getting through college with part-time jobs and rejected FAFSA appeals was some kind of unfair advantage. What she didn't say at graduation was that she had dropped out of law school after 1 semester, that she'd blamed the professors, the cost our mother, everyone but herself. After our dad died, she'd stepped up, briefly paid a few bills, made a few phone calls. She liked being the one who held things together. But as soon as the checks stopped and the grief settled, she vanished. I was 19 when she moved out, leaving a post-it note on the fridge and a box of half-packed dishes. She said she needed space. I needed money. So I stayed enrolled in full-time classes and picked up 2 jobs, morning shifts at a bakery and evenings tutoring high school kids in math. Callie didn't ask how I managed it. She just told people I was the ambitious one. Her voice always curled around the word like it was a slur. What she didn't say at graduation was that I hadn't spoken to her in nearly a year. The last time she called was to ask if she could borrow the password to our dad's old banking app. just to check something she'd said. What she didn't say was that she hadn't congratulated me, not when I got the internship, not when I got the research grant, not once in 4 years. So no, the outburst wasn't surprising. What caught me off guard was the timing. She waited until the mic was on, until the lights were bright, until the moment wasn't hers, just to make sure it wouldn't be mine either. I should have known then that what happened on stage was only the beginning. I stood there for a moment longer after the mic went quiet, the last of my words still hovering in the air. Some lies don't need to be shouted down, I had said. They collapse on their own. A few heads turned toward Callie, now seated again, arms crossed, eyes hard. Others looked at Dean Hartford, who nodded slightly as if to say, "That's enough." Then claps. Not loud, not immediate. Just a handful of people who had waited. A professor in the front row. A classmate I didn't know well. Jess, my roommate, standing and clapping like she was trying to hold up the roof by herself. I didn't bow. I didn't smile. I just walked off stage, diploma in hand, spine straight. It felt like carrying a flag through enemy lines. Outside, the sun was sharp and cold. Families were already spilling out onto the steps, calling names, taking photos. Laughter and camera flashes and someone yelling, "Over here, Grandma." I slipped past them all down the side ramp, past a group of undergrads I didn't recognize. One of them whispered something, and I caught only the word cheated. It wasn't a question. I kept walking until I reached the edge of the quad near the old science building where I used to nap between tutoring sessions. I sat down on a low stone wall and checked my phone. Jess had texted Screw Her. "You were brilliant. Then come meet us later." You don't have to say a word. Just be with people who know. There were others. Professor Klein, proud of you. My TA from Stats. Anyone watching you for the last 4 years knows the truth. One number I didn't recognize. "We've never met. I was in the back row. Just wanted you to know I believed you." I exhaled. Not relief. Just breath. The diploma was still in my lap, warm from my hands. I ran my fingers over the embossed lettering, not to admire it, but to make sure it was still there. Some part of me kept expecting it to disappear, but it didn't. And neither did what came next. I didn't stay at the after-party. I didn't answer Jess's texts or stop by the cafe where my classmates were gathering in caps and sneakers and borrowed joy. I took the bus home diploma tucked in my coat like a secret I wasn't sure I'd earned. Inside my apartment, I didn't turn on the lights. I just walked straight to the bookshelf and pulled out the bottom drawer, the one with the false back. Behind a stack of notebooks was a locked file pouch, thin gray, unmarked. The key was taped under the drawer. Inside were papers I hadn't looked at in months. Copies of financial aid statements, screenshots of disappearing balances, a typed report with a plain title, Preliminary Findings, Ellison Case. It had started in sophomore year when my scholarship check bounced. The financial aid office had no explanation. An issue with the account, they said, eyes darting, voices low. I didn't qualify for more grants. They suggested a loan. I picked up a second job instead. That same semester, I logged into the old bank account my grandfather had opened for my education. The balance was wrong. Way too low. At first, I thought it was interest or maybe a mistake. Then I saw the withdrawals. $3,500 here, $6,200 there, over and over, always in round numbers. Transfers to a secondary account I didn't recognize. I stared at the screen until it blurred. The only other person who had ever had access to that account was Callie. Our dad had added her when he got sick just in case. He never thought she'd need to be removed. I remembered sitting across from Frankie Dillard for the first time, an ex-cop turned small-town investigator who now specialized in quiet fraud. He didn't flinch when I told him it might be my sister. He took the case. 2 months later, he handed me a file and said, "You're not wrong. But it's worse than you think." Callie had forged my name, bank forms, authorization letters, even my scholarship appeal. Over $28,000 gone. Now with my diploma in one hand and the file in the other, I knew her outburst at graduation wasn't about anger. It was a distraction. She'd spent years stealing from me, and now she was trying to make sure no one believed me when I finally spoke. 2 days after graduation, I walked into Dean Hartford's office with the file pressed flat between my palms. I didn't have an appointment. His assistant hesitated until I said my name. Then she nodded once quietly and waved me through. He stood when I entered, gesturing to the seat across from his desk like we were equals now. "Leora," he said carefully, "I was hoping I'd hear from you." I didn't say anything at first. I just opened the folder and began laying out the documents. One by one, bank statements, forged authorization forms, notarized handwriting comparisons, Frankie's report, the dates, the totals. By the time I placed the last page down, Dean Hartford's expression had shifted from curiosity to something sharper, but not doubt. He looked at me and said, "I saw the way you stood on that stage. I believed you before you even spoke." He leaned back, fingers steepled beneath his chin. "This is serious, and very thorough." I nodded. He took a moment, then asked, "What do you want to do with this? I want it on record," I said. "Not just for me. I need someone official to know that what she said wasn't just a lie, it was cover." He picked up one of the documents, read a few lines, then set it down. "I can write a letter confirming your academic integrity and help you submit a report to the university's legal counsel. But this," he tapped the forged bank form, "this is criminal. You should consider going to court." I didn't flinch. I already have a lawyer. I just needed someone to believe me first. "I do," he said simply. He reached for a pen. I watched as he signed his name across the top of the letterhead. The first piece of official truth. Something no whisper could erase. By the time I left the building, I had a signed statement in my bag and a court intake form waiting in my inbox. The paperwork was filed on a Thursday. My lawyer, Samantha Cray, handled the filing with a calm efficiency that felt almost surgical. She was sharp-eyed, soft-voiced, and had already flagged 3 inconsistencies in Callie's bank activity before we even finished the intake forms. Civil fraud, identity theft, financial misappropriation, she'd said, flipping through the binder. "We'll start with the civil case. Criminal referrals come later." That evening, I sat by the window with my phone on the table waiting. At 6:42 p.m., it rang. Her number. I hit record before I picked up. "What the hell is this?" Callie's voice was already raised. "Some stranger just handed me a letter at my door." "Are you insane? Did you read it?" I asked. "Of course I read it." "A lawsuit for what?" "Trying to keep our family from falling apart." I said nothing. "You know I accessed that account to make sure it didn't get wasted. You were too young to manage that money. You weren't even using it right." I didn't respond, just let the silence do its work. "You're seriously doing this," she snapped. "You're dragging me through court because I helped you." "You forged my name," I said quietly. "And you're throwing away everything Dad built over what some stupid account Samantha listened to the recording later that night." She gave us everything she said, nearly smiling. "That's gold in court." I saved the audio and backed it up twice. The next day, Samantha filed the recording as supporting evidence. Callie's voice, so practiced, so sure, sounded different when written out in legal print. Every justification, every half-denial, every word. It was all there now. She had spent years rewriting the story. But this time, the version that counted was mine. The news moved faster than I expected. Within days of the papers being served, I started getting calls numbers I hadn't seen in years lighting up my screen. Aunt Daphne was the first. "I need to talk to you," she said. Her voice was thin, like it had been kept in a drawer too long. "I should have told you earlier. We met at a coffee shop on Willow and 3rd Neutral Ground. She brought a manila envelope and didn't touch her drink. When your dad died, Callie told me you needed time to grieve, that I shouldn't bother you. Then she asked to borrow $8,000 to help with tuition. Said the school was threatening to revoke your spot." I blinked. "She told me you moved away and didn't want contact." Aunt Daphne shook her head. "I wired her the money." Never heard from her again. She opened the envelope bank slips. Old emails, a printed note in Callie's handwriting, thanking her for protecting the family legacy. "I stayed quiet," she said, "because I wanted to believe she was helping you." That night I got a message from Kara, a girl I hadn't talked to since high school. "Hey, weird question. Did you ever get the money I lent Callie?" She said it was for your housing deposit. I gave her 4 Kalars my freshman year. There were more, a former tutor, a neighbor from 3 blocks over, each with the same pattern, a version of me in distress. Callie, the loyal sister, stepping in to solve it, just needing a little help, just needing funds. She hadn't been angry at graduation because she thought I cheated. She'd been angry because her cover story was collapsing. This wasn't just resentment, it was theft wrapped in sisterhood. A con built on my silence. She didn't just lie about me. She made me the lie. And now that I was telling the truth, the version of me she'd invented couldn't survive. The courtroom smelled like old paper and cold air. I sat in the front row alone, my hands folded over a plain blue folder. Across the aisle, Callie breezed in wearing a navy suit and heels too high for the polished floors.